Attention, attention, sound the alarm. You are here with the Audacious podcast hosted by Talon Bolmy with special guests Jackson Knight and Micah Tassy. Oh yeah!
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Audacious podcast. The show that just when you think it might be over, keeps coming back round and round over and over again. I'm Talon Bolmy, your host of the podcast, and you might notice that yet again, we're in a seemingly different studio. And you might have also noticed that there might have been a couple of weeks where we weren't publishing episodes. Long story short, our previous studio got removed from its previous location. It no longer exists. So this whole semester I was looking for a new location to record in, and thankfully we finally got clearance to record in this lovely space. And today I have two lovely gentlemen joining me on today's episode. I have Jackson Knight. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Talon, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And we also have a returning guest, Micah Tassy.
Hey.
Welcome back. Today's episode is going to be about how to develop good and godly community. A lot of times what is really important in life is choosing who to surround ourselves with and prioritizing friendships and community, because no man is an island. None of us can do this life alone. We all need someone there to pick us up when we fall. But I think what is often de-emphasized is being very intentional about who you're choosing to be friends with, being intentional about who you're surrounding yourself with, and intentional on how they're impacting you. And so what we're going to be talking about today is how do you find good community? How do you pursue that? And if you do realize that the community you're in is not healthy for you anymore, how do you lovingly step away from that? Really excited for today's episode. Before we jump into it, let's get to know our two guests a little bit better. Jackson, go ahead and tell us your major and your hometown.
I am a graphic design major, and I was born in California, but my hometown is Spartanburg, South Carolina. So
Very nice. And Micah, go ahead and remind us your major and hometown.
I'm a digital media communications major, and I'm from Rock Hill, South Carolina. Or as some people like to call it, Rock Thrill. I don't like to call it that. I find it kind of weird.
Is there a story behind that nickname?
I have no idea.
Okay.
People that I know have just said it. Like people who've been there longer than I have, and I'm just like, why are we calling it Rock Thrill?
maybe it's because you're there, so that's probably why they call it that.
Yeah.
So, Rock Hill.
Well, it was called that before I got there, so.
But they were anticipating your arrival.
Maybe.
Exactly.
That was the
Something
thrill
like
of their
that, I
life.
don't know.
It's so good to have you back, brother.
It's good to be back.
And of course, we do have a juicy, spicy icebreaker question before we jump into the topic. And let's start off with our new guest, Jackson Knight. Go ahead and tell us what your hottest take is.
Okay, so I'm about to get a lot of backlash from a lot of communities from this, but y'all, okay, here we go. So I am not the biggest fan of the extended Lord of the Rings movies. Yes, I know. Now,
Wow.
Okay, now hear me out. I've never grown up with the Lord of the Rings before, and I've watched The Hobbit. I enjoyed the 2 hours. I can do that. But I could not handle the 4-hour extended edition of Lord of the Rings. I could not do it. Maybe if I have the right crowd, or if it's condensed, I can watch it. But I just could not do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because we've had this conversation before, I think.
Yeah.
And I always say that it makes sense because you started out watching with the extended cuts. And I can see why that would be a little crazy.
So you didn't read The Lord of the Rings beforehand?
I tried reading, I think The Hobbit, because that's technically technically that is before Lord of the Rings. And I got a few pages in, and I was in middle school, so I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't have pictures. And I was like, all right, shutting this book.
Yep. Didn't pick it up again?
I did not know. Wow. But I did watch the movies, and I did enjoy the 2-hour versions. I watched on a long car trip, and it was pretty cool. I will say that.
Yeah. Interesting.
I love Lord of the Rings, so that pains me a little bit. But I also understand because they're long.
They're
very long movies.
They are very long. I remember the first time I saw them, my family decided to do a marathon of them, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, over Thanksgiving, I want to say. So I got the full experience. Mind you, I was also probably in middle school. So I started trying to rewatch them. I think I got through the first one, and then I just didn't have the time to watch the second. I think they're beautiful works of art, but you have to carve out so much time out of your schedule for them.
Yes.
I just finished a rewatch over the summer.
Yeah.
And I think after I finished it, I think I can solidify the fact that Return of the King is my #1 movie of all time. Just watching the whole thing, like go through it, and then have it end on Return of the King is just so good. There's so many great themes in that movie, and like so many great just topics about, fellowship, community, and I almost cried several times throughout that entire movie.
Yeah, very, very nice. How about you, Micah? I know we've already heard your hottest take. But
Yeah.
Go ahead and give us another one that's rattling on.
That's not my hottest take. The one that I did previously.
Yeah.
But I could probably come up with something better if I thought about it. But this one, I don't want to be just another Taylor Swift hater who doesn't like Taylor Swift. I do like some of Taylor Swift's old music, and and I can't deny that her marketing is incredible, and she's done a very good job for herself. I don't like her, and I think that I'm going to out myself a little bit. I think that Meghan Trainor is way better than Taylor Swift in a lot of ways.
You can tell the difference between their music.
Yes, I can, because one's actually good and the other sounds exactly the same. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Meghan Trainor's music is just a lot more fun. Like I would never describe myself or try to understand what it is to be a girl boss until I listen to Meghan Trainor music, because then I actually feel like a girl boss. And I don't know, she just has a lot more personality than I feel like Taylor Swift does. I went to one of her concerts like a couple months ago, and it was really fun, just because she's a family lady. I think she took like a hiatus for a couple of years so that she could have 2 kids and start to raise them. And for some reason, she's married to the guy who played Junie from Spy Kids.
What?
I'm not kidding. That's
Meghan Trainor is
What?
officially the coolest female artist.
Exactly. Like,
Just for that.
I think my sister told me that a couple years ago, and when I heard that, I was like, excuse me? Junie Cortez from Spy Kids is married to Meghan Trainor.
That's so hype.
And her kids are also really cute. They're like both like little redheaded kids with like glasses. It's really cute.
That is crazy. That's a really hot take.
Yeah. I know I'm going to make people mad, but I honestly do not care at all.
Okay, but I have to understand like the level that you're a fan of her. When you went to the concert, was it by yourself or did you go with someone else?
I went with my girlfriend, her mom, and her sister.
Okay.
So it was funny because I had told Serena that I was, into Meghan Trainor. I was like, I like her music. I think her music's pretty good. And there was one point during the summer where her mom was like, so Serena told me you like Meghan Trainor. We're going in September. Do you want to go with us? And I was like,
no way.
I was like, you know what? I'm not going to say no to that. That'll be fun. So
That's crazy. Yeah. I think that goes to show, though, how everything is made better when you go with people, like to experience it. You know, thinking about movies, you just said, like, you could probably bear it, the extended versions of The Lord of the Rings, if you're with a group of people.
Right.
Because just watching movies with people makes it infinitely better. Going to concerts with people, not by yourself, makes it infinitely better.
Right.
But it just goes to show, like, we are meant for community, man. Just life is so much more joyful. It is just so much more lively. Like, life being lively is something that you don't think about, but there is a difference between living and thriving and just existing. Life is so much more alive when you're with people, with community, which goes to show the importance of it and the importance of who we hang around. We love hanging around people that we can share common interests with, that we can do life with, walk together with. And I think a lot of times we can not really see the importance of community, especially when life gets hard. When things start getting hard, when life gets busy, we start thinking that, oh, I can handle everything by myself. I just need to lock in, and I can do everything on my own strength. But like I said before, no man is an island, right? I think a beauty of community and having people around you is that we're all going to fall at some point. None of us can keep ourselves up by our own strength, right? And when we do fall, like, there's always someone around us to pick us up. So I just want to say, like, that's the importance of community. I think that's why community is so good. And there is a difference between, like, having a good community and then just having, like, people around you that you are acquaintances with. how can you tell that difference? How can you tell whether or not you're truly friends with people and you have a community, or you just know them by name? You just see each other.
I mean, I feel like when you're acquainted with people, you enjoy the people you're with, but I feel like in a community, there's like trust within that, and like you're able to like trust them with like what you're going through versus like what you appear to be going through. Because like sometimes you'll just be like, oh, I'm having a great day with like some of your acquaintances, but with like some of your friends, you're like, I'm having a great day, but I'm feeling kind of tired because of X, Y, or Z. And like those people like within a community you can trust to like share like your experiences and what you're going through and trust them with that. And yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I also feel like a lot of times with a community versus acquaintance, it's evident to other people when you can be like, oh yeah, this is a really tight-knit group of people versus, oh, they just know them offhandedly. Because like I walk around all the time and I see people like, you know, talking with each other, or hanging out, and like I'm like, oh, okay, these are the people who are like in a community with each other, and then this is just somebody who sat down in the library with them. Not to say that they're not polite and friendly to each other and they're not acquainted, but there is a difference in the level of deepness of connection. When I see people who are in a community that I wanted to be a part of, like when I first came here, I would see people in groups and I'd be like, oh, I want to be a part of that group. Or, oh, I want that kind of friendship. I still sometimes do that.
Yeah.
Less so now that I've really found my people and I've, you know, been at college for 4 years. But still sometimes I'm like, oh, that seems like a cool group of people to hang out with. I want to get to know them.
Yeah.
But then again, you can't spread yourself too thin.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're not going to be getting all that you need from spreading yourself out like that, because then you're just wasting more energy than you're getting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to bounce off of that. So that idea of spreading yourself too thin, I think the difference between like an acquaintance and community is like, where are they at in your life? Are they there just for like the classes and the fun events, or are they also there when you're going through something like you were talking about, Jackson, and they're there for you and they can talk about it without feeling like put off by it, right? But also you were talking about, Micah, spreading yourself too thin. Like I can speak for myself, and I think I can speak for a lot of people. We enjoy making friends and being around other people. And sometimes there can be a push, especially in college, like just to be friends with everybody and to do everything, right? To spread ourselves out so that we're making this event and this event and this event, not really thinking of how much energy we're expending or how full our schedule is getting. What I kind of want to tie in here is I think what really matters is the type of people that you surround yourself with and the type of people that you can say, yeah, these are my friends. This is my community. So I want to open up the floor and ask this question. What does the type of people that you surround yourself with matter? Like their character, their values, how they live, how they act. And what are some examples that you can just tie into that?
Well, I think a lot of times we're going to surround ourselves with people who have similar interests to us.
Yeah.
That way we, at a very base level, we have stuff to talk about. Like for a lot of guys, especially some of the guys I know, like I became friends with a lot of them just because we bonded over dumb stuff like, you know, superheroes or Lord of the Rings or something like that. Like that's how I met like half the guys in our suite. But then so you need like that baseline entry. But I think just like a willingness to talk and a willingness to listen to each other. Because if you listen to people, they're going to listen to you. They're going to in turn listen to you if you have something to say. And I think it's important to surround yourself with people because also they're going to, if they're like-minded people and they care about you, you're going to care about their actions as well as your own around them. Mm-hmm. So then you're going to in turn start molding yourself to be a more Christ-like person, hopefully, as long as those people are pointing you towards Christ.
I feel like importance, like for that as well, is like there are a few like passages I wrote down when I was thinking about godly community and the importance of that, like who you surround yourself with. And like a few of those, it's like Proverbs 13:20, which says, "He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the company of fools will suffer harm." And I feel like the people, it's not really recognized that like the people you hang around, like eventually you will like become like the people you hang around. And like I know that's like said and it feels like a cliche thing to say sometimes, but like it is true. Like there was this time in high school I hung around the wrong crowd and whatnot, and that like influenced a lot of my thoughts and my actions. And I noticed at one point I wasn't really acting very Christ-like, and that put like, I don't know, like if hindrance is the right word, on like my being as a Christian. And it's important to like surround yourself with those people who you can like bond with those like things like, I don't know, video games and whatnot, but like to embody Christ through like trust or joy. And through that, I feel like we grow stronger as Christians in a way. And like this other verse, Proverbs 27:17, I'm certain everyone has heard this, but to be sharpened as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. So it's important to do that so we stay on point as Christians and not fall into that like sense of worldly community, so that we can still like focus on Christ through like our like doing video games or stuff like that. So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's important, especially when we are choosing who to spend time with, because we have limited time. We're choosing who to spend our life with. I think it's really important to choose who those people are. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Like you were talking about in Proverbs, it talks about, the company of the wise is wise himself. But like bad company corrupts good morals. That's another verse out of the Bible. And just the idea that we start to become who we hang around, not in the sense that like our own character starts to disappear, but we start to, pick up just the good that we see in other people, and sometimes the bad habits. We can easily pick those up. I mean, I think you see that especially in children. Children imitate so easily. They imitate so easily. And so I want to say that like I think it's really important to make sure that like we're not being friends with everybody and trying to strive to do that. Because if we try to be everybody's best friend, I feel like we're just going to run out of energy, and I feel like we're going to reach a corner where we then feel like alone, just because we're trying so hard to be everybody's best friend. But I do want to hear y'all's thoughts on that.
I can definitely relate to the whole like trying to be everyone's best friend, because like at first, like at college or like in high school, you're trying to do everything with everyone.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's difficult to discern like friendships in that way, because like you want to be friends with everyone, but it's hard to do that because you're stretched so thin. It just doesn't feel like you can do everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's important to at least try to like pour in a little bit more before you feel like with someone who might be like going through something. And it's good to like pour a little bit in, because like we don't know sometimes we don't know what someone's going through, and it's good to like maybe go out of our way to like invite someone to something or do something with that nature. But like it's difficult because you still want to be friends with them, but you don't want to like cut off that connection. So
yeah,
it's really difficult. So
It's a balancing act,
yeah,
like balancing a bucket on your head.
No, it is. And like I think the reality is that like even if you're not able to be close friends with someone, that doesn't mean that you aren't able to love them.
Right. Yeah.
We are called to love everybody, right? We're called to love everyone as Jesus does. And so it's not a matter of like not loving someone, because we're called to do that, and so that's what we do just on an everyday basis. But it's realizing our ability to be that close with people, it does have a limit. It does. Because Jesus, he had 12 close disciples with him. And he even had his like inner circle of 3, which I think was like Peter, John, James, I want to say was
I think
that
it was
there?
James, yeah.
Yeah, like there were certain things that only he invited those 3 like to go witness, to go see. And he told them like, hey, don't talk about this until the resurrection. So even Jesus, like he chose his disciples very intentionally, and he realized, I believe, it is good to a man that he wisely chooses his friends.
the scripture that keeps popping in my head is I can't remember the specific book or reference, but it's the verse that says, if possible, live at peace with everyone. I don't want to take this out of context, so if somebody finds it, look it up, please, and correct me if I'm wrong. But there's a lot of comfort in that verse, knowing, like, because I've had situations where I've had to stop being friends with people because they were toxic or because they were not a good influence on my life. And I either had to like eventually fizzle that out, or I had to strong arm it and be like, okay, look, I can't do this anymore. This is not beneficial to my relationship with the Lord. It's not beneficial for my mental health. And there's a weird connotation there because we're called to love everybody. And I had to balance the idea of, okay, how do I love this person from a distance? And to what extent am I not loving them? But then that verse kept coming to mind. It's like, if possible, live at peace with everyone. We don't need to be friends with everybody. And I'm sure there's context there that I'm missing. But I think people are very quick to gloss over the if possible part of that verse. So, you know what? I'm going to look it up because I really don't want to be wrong about this.
Go for it.
Romans 12:18. I'm going to start in verse 9. Love must be sincere, hate what is evil, cling to what is good, be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourselves, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need, practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of a low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. And then verse 18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay. So the Lord says the Lord. Then on the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
Yeah, that whole section is a beautiful way of displaying how we live out loving people and also how we live out being a friend to people. Like, share with God's people who are in need, practice hospitality, rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. Like, as a friend, when your friend is like going through something, like, you're going to be there with him. You're going to mourn with him. And when something good happens to him, you're not going to like get jealous. You're not going to be like, oh, why didn't it happen to me? You're going to rejoice with him, man. You really are. Because that's the beauty of a friendship is like, man, your success, it's my success too. So I'm your friend. I get to rejoice in that with you. It makes my day seeing you succeed. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's the right attitude to have about it.
Yeah.
So let's take this in a practical standpoint, because I think a lot of times, especially, I say this all the time, in our culture today, in our current culture, we have a lot of people that have only known surface level friendships and have only had friendships on the surface. For a long time, that was also my life, is that I thought friends were just people that you did things with. And I didn't really understand what it meant to have a deep friendship, to have a community. So how would you practically recommend that people that have surface level friendships, if they want to take that deeper or define deeper community, deeper friendships, how would you recommend to people how to practically pursue that?
One way you can practically pursue that is like one thing I like to do with people is try to get one-on-ones, like lunches or something like that, like a practical thing where like you can like get to know the person a little bit better, because like within a group setting, that's great. You get to hang out with everyone, but like one-on-ones, you get to hear about the other person like across from you, not like the whole group. You get to figure out their journey as like a believer and where they've been and like what they care about, what they like to do. And then you get to like go do stuff with that person and like talk about the joys of life. So, yeah.
Yeah.
My answer is simple. Talk. I think that's something that we've started to undervalue in our society today. But no, like
Catching on.
no, like as someone who is deep in the trenches of a communication major, I find it concerning how little we talk. Because a lot of talk happens over social media comment sections and DMs. Like, that's not good. That's not good communication. Because you can't sit and have a good you can't have a good conversation with somebody hiding behind a screen.
Yeah.
You can't read body language. You can't read facial expressions. All the essentials and the little nuances that go into having a conversation with somebody are lost because you're even names. Like, there's so much value in learning somebody's name.
Yeah.
I know a lot of things are like, oh, names have power. And it's so true. Like, names do hold a lot of value. It's part of somebody's identity. And when you're sitting behind the anonymity of an Instagram post, it's like, it's just not, it's not the same thing. And I see so many relationships nowadays, and I've had so many conversations like this with so many people, but like, there are so many relationships nowadays that just fall apart because people aren't talking. They're not getting to know each other. So sometimes I laugh at it because I'm like, oh, they should just be talking about this and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Of course, I can't say that out loud because that's inconsiderate and that's not how you would properly advise someone in that situation. Then again, I'm not close to people, as close with as many people as I would like to be.
Yeah.
But with the people you are close with, you can the more you speak into their lives, the more it opens up avenues for deeper conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, like we all know this. Like, just even recently with like guys in our Bible study who have like come to us with really hard things. But like the fact that they're opening up about it, and the fact that we all feel that we can open up to each other about the junk that we're all going through.
Yeah.
And I've said it once, I say it again. The more you talk about it, the easier it becomes to talk about it later. And that's why we need to encourage each other, just like, hey, you got a problem? I'm here. We talked about this last time. Like, with Ethan, don't assume you have the power to ruin my day by telling me about your problems. Only I can ruin my day.
Yeah.
I'm here to listen to you.
Can I speak on that?
Yes.
Galatians 6:2, carry each other's burdens, and in this, fulfill the law of Christ. It doesn't say carry it alone. We got to do it with community, okay? Community is about the ups and downs, because, like, your real friends are there for you, like, in your good times, yes, but, like, when you're going through something and you can trust them, and I feel like that is what good community looks like, where you can trust someone to say, hey, I'm going through this, and I need prayer. I need you to be there for me for this, and that's what good community looks like.
You know what I just realized it's kind of crazy about that?
What?
Community isn't a suggestion, it's a command. Because in Galatians it says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you fulfill the law of Christ. That community is literally a command. We are not supposed to go it alone.
Yeah. I love that. And I love what you were talking about. Like, it's based around communication. It really is. Because, like, can you think of how many times we just go through the motion, even in, like, day-to-day, face-to-face conversation? It's like, oh, man, hey, how are things going? Oh, going all right. How are you? Doing good, man. Hey, like, what, see that game last night? And it's just the same thing over and over again. We're staying on the surface. It takes intentionality to be able to stop and pause for a second and be like, hey, how are things really going? I mean, we talk about this all the time, but to ask, like, maybe a more thought-inducing question, like, hey, what's one way that you saw a miracle, either small or large, last week, right? What's one thing God has been teaching you this past week? I personally, like, value it so much when people ask me, like, hey, what's God been teaching you recently? How has God moved in your life? Because that takes the perspective off of me. that takes the perspective off of like my little circle and everything that I'm going through, my schedule, my routine. And it's like, okay, let me take a seat back and like have a perspective of this life is not all about me. And that helps. Like that's how people and friends like can help me. And that just shows like be around each other. Community is a command. But like you were saying, Micah, with communication, like I have a hometown friend that like I feel like he's been such a good friend just all throughout the life. But I realized like, man, I don't have as deep a relationship with this guy as I want to. And I was thinking like, how do we develop that? And I just realized I started talking about more things. I started talking about my life, started talking about things that I was going through. And like he has also just started opening up. And I feel like I've been closer to him. So it just goes back to communication, man. Our spoken word is such a powerful thing. And when you don't communicate, that also gives signs, you know, either that, you know, you're dealing with something or you just aren't willing to at some point. And as friends, you can all support into that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, great answers.
Communication is so undervalued. Communication is undervalued, people.
Both as a concept and as a major.
Wait, Micah, what is your major again?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. I had a friend who kept telling me it was a useless major, and every time I would get mad, now I actually have a reason to get mad. I hope she listens to this episode so that I can rub it in her face, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but the fact that it's a major just shows how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now. Come on. And I think that also is a huge battle that we can fight as we are looking to develop friendships and get closer to people, is that what we intend to communicate is sometimes not what they receive as the communication. I think sometimes arguments can come up. There can be some misconstrued conceptions, or like you can continue to think over something and question it like, wait, did they mean this? Did they mean that? Or somebody says something and they don't mean it that way, but it comes across to you that way. So I think I'm going to close with this question. In friendships and just everyday life, when you're looking to be friendly to people, get to know them better, how can you try to practically put yourself in their shoes and not immediately take everything at face value?
One thing I always tell myself is, rather, something that I've held in my mind for a while is something my dad always told me growing up, was that everybody's got a story. Everybody's got something going on, and you don't really know what it is. And because of that, you have to either A, understand it, to understand what they're going through so you can better sympathize, or be like, okay, you got stuff you need to sort out. I'll back up, but if you need anything, right here. And I think that's a lot of what I see in certain areas. I work with the chapel program here, and our supervisor is always telling us like, hey, people are going to come in. There's a lot going on. It's that point in the semester, and you know, them having an issue with the chapel app could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So we got to be on point and friendly and understanding and whatnot. I mean, and that goes for anything else that we may be doing. Because you really never do. You never know what people are going through unless they tell you. And 90% of the time, they're not going to tell you because you're a stranger or they don't know you well enough. But, I mean, just accommodate. It costs you nothing to accommodate to somebody's. If you're going to have like a 30-second interaction with somebody, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I feel like one thing, like when we're trying to fit into other people's shoes, is like, first of all, like, do not assume anything about them, because like Michael was saying, we don't know what someone is going through. And like, the most important thing you can do in those cases is ask to listen, because like sometimes people just need to be heard in some cases. And like last night we were reading something in Bible study that actually stood out to me, like that God was like, he wasn't like, when he saw people, he like didn't like or anything like that. He didn't smote or anything like that. It said like God listened to Israel, and like he's a God who listens. Like we need to be willing to listen to what people are going through, because like that's the thing. We don't know, and you never want to be like, I know exactly what you're going through, because we don't. But like we can still have an idea by listening and like paying attention and trying to be there, be present in the moment with that person. And it's hard to do, but it's what needs to be done to like strengthen that relationship, because that's what is about, like what's about community. It's like you can trust that person, you can be open with them about something that you're going through.
Yeah. I feel like in the same way that communication is starting to get lost in our culture, the ability to listen to someone and truly listen is also being lost. We live in such a culture of hurry and rush and always thinking about the next thing, that I feel like we've forgotten how to truly listen. Not just hear, be like, oh yeah, okay, but to listen, to be present in the moment and not just hear the words, but also see their body language, to feel the emotion that's coming through the words. It's so important, because that's how we connect. That's how we can understand what somebody's going through, is when we're not jumping to assumptions of, oh, they mean this, they mean that. Oh, it's not that bad. But when we truly connect with people, it's through communication and listening. Yeah. And I think that's a wrap. So thank you, boys, so much for coming out to the 26th episode of the Audacious podcast. 26,
An even number?
Crazy.
I love
even number. And thank you so much for listening. As always, I'm your host, Talon Bowie, and I will catch you next time. Have a great rest of your week. See you later. Bye-bye.
Let's set the record straight, Batman. Why so serious? The Audacious Podcast. Welcome to the Audacious Podcast, Batman, where we discuss all the things about spirituality. Yes, Batman. Theology. Theology, Batman. Free will and predestination, Batman.
No, Joker, it's not true. My parents weren't predestined.
They're both true, Batman. I don't know why everyone argues about them, but they're all true.